Welcome everyone. It is class time, so what we're going to do is do a brief introduction. I will show you the general flow of the course, and then we'll get into some material this evening. I don't want to use the entire time to go over kind of the housekeeping stuff, but I am well aware that many students are new to Keiser and are new to this type of platform and are probably feeling a lot of different anxieties or emotions or uncertainties, which is perfectly acceptable and normal at this point in time because of all the unknowns. But hopefully, as I go through this, it'll put you a little bit at ease. And it's perfectly normal for the first day or two to feel overwhelmed. That also is a normal human emotion when you're starting an online course. Very, very normal. But you start to fall into this groove, you'll start to fall into a pattern, and you'll see that each week it's the same things that you're responsible for doing. And the key to this course is really time management, okay? Like any course, you're always learning new information, but it's how you manage your time that really determines your success. So welcome, I'm Dr. Stephen Lindner. This is Anatomy and Physiology 1. It's a pretty quick course. We'll be seeing each other for the next 4 weeks, and it does move quickly. So as I said before, time management is really important on your part. So one of the first questions a lot of students ask is, how much time do I have to put into the course? On average, it's about 15 hours a week, on average. So I try and tell students, many students are working, many have family, right? There's lots of stuff going on, which is why many of you take an online course for the added dimension of convenience. So I try and tell people, if nothing changes in your pattern, but you get up an hour earlier and you stay up an hour later, that's 2 hours right there. 7 days a week, that's 14 hours right there. And if you add a little bit at lunchtime, you should be looking pretty good. So that's just a little tip as to how you could do it in your given circumstance. If you don't change anything major, there's still some sort of solution that's there. Okay, so what I'd like to walk you through is, this is the home page, right? You can see on the top left here, this is the home page. You'll see that there are some announcements that you should be looking at. Every day, check the announcements. Some of them I had sent a few days ago, so if you didn't catch them, just click on the announcement page and you can scroll down and you could see this one was sent on January 10th. And let's see if I can go down to the beginning. Let's scroll all the way down here. So I sent this one on a little bit earlier on that talks about APR, which stands for Anatomy and Physiology Revealed, which is part of your lab. It's a key part of your lab. So you'll just read up and touch up on that announcement. There's one above it on the late policy. Just freshen up on that if you would. I then sent one out here on January 7th, just on some of my tips that I suggest on being successful in the course. So take some time to go through it. If I took the time to put it together, it's not for my benefit. It really is for you. I want to see my students excel and do as best they can, because A&P is really a foundational course for all of healthcare. Whether you want to be a radiological technician, in diagnostic ultrasound, physical therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy assistant, chiropractor, chiropractic assistant, in medicine, in nursing, in respiratory therapy. This is the basic foundational course that you need. And when you understand anatomy and physiology as a foundational course, there's so many other things that build up upon it. If you don't understand natural anatomy and natural physiology, normal structure and normal function, then how could you build up on that to learn pathophysiology, which is abnormal structure, abnormal function? Okay, so this next announcement message that I sent, it looks very, very long, but there's a reason why it looks that way. There's a message I sent on the for the discussion board or the discussion forum. And some of you have already picked your topic for the week. I'll go through that. But this clearly shows for week 1, there are, looks like 39 topics. And this course is somewhat self-taught, right? You'll be learning a lot on your own. You'll be teaching one another quite a bit. And that teaching component takes place on the discussion board or the discussion forum. And the beauty of this is, if you can explain something to someone else, it means you understand it. If you could teach it, if you could tutor someone, you truly do own that information. So this part makes you the active participant in the teaching process. And through student surveys over the years, we discover that this is such a key component in the learning process, is not just sitting back, being a passive learner, but truly being the active participant in the process. So of these 39 topics, each week, this week is 39 topics, next week maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, each of you pick one topic. And that'll be the topic that you answer to. And you have to claim that on the discussion forum. You'll see it looks like 3 or 4 students have already claimed a topic. So you want to review them, see what's left, and then pick your topic. And you're going to be following these guidelines down below using APA format, making sure you have some research that goes involved with that topic. Make sure you include critical thinking into your topic. And that is one of your posts, which is really teaching one of those concepts. And then each of you have to do 2 other posts, which is really commenting or adding additional information that you find intriguing on some of your classmates' work. So let's say I did something on directional terms, which we'll go over a little bit today. Someone may find a component of that interesting and build upon it. Okay? So it's the labeling, it's the formatting that's very important. It's addressing your classmates. So make sure you follow, type the number and the name of your topic and the subject heading. So each of you will be doing 3 posts a week. And there is a rubric that goes along with that I posted down here. Here is the rubric for your main post. How do you score points on a second post? And how do you score points on your third post? Okay. Down below are just some examples of posts that my students have done in another course. And you can see they labeled it. You could see they cited everything properly. Here is an answer, and then down below is another classmate doing an addition to that, okay, with their references and citations. Here's a question on, it looks like NSAIDs and how it can cause ulcers, and then you have another student adding additional information to that, which is kind of neat. Okay, so there's a lot of really practical learning, practical application of the discussion board in healthcare and to our lives. It should be a fun and interesting part of the course. So review the discussion board announcement that I left for you. Each week there are different topics, okay, and you'll claim them each week and follow through in the same process. 3 posts, 1 is an answer, 2 additions, 2 different classmates on 2 other different topics. And this way you learn, you read their work and you add, and then other students are learning and growing exponentially on that. Okay, so always make sure you check the announcement page. Most of you already clicked on Meet Your Instructor, and you're meeting me now. But so this is me right here. This is my email address. Typically, my office hours are now 9 to 10 p.m. Mondays, that's when we do our live session. If there's any change in scheduling, I'll be sure to send out an announcement message and let you know that there was a slight change. If that time and day doesn't work for you, again, I record it, and then you have access to the recordings as well. There's a little bit about myself. I do have an extensive history in healthcare. I've been a doctor of chiropractic for 25 years, and I've been in teaching since 1997, 1998. Always teaching anatomy and physiology, pathophysiology, nutrition courses, neurology, myology, always to healthcare professionals. Teaching has never really been a job for me. It's never been work. It's been something that is a lot of fun for me to do. It's something I do in my practice. I do have a private practice. I see patients every week. And to me, it's just like being an anatomy and physiology teacher to my patients, always teaching them about human structure and human function. Okay, so it is truly something that I enjoy. And I want to see all of you excel and do well and enjoy it as much as I do. Here's the syllabus. And when you go through the syllabus, you'll see that there are some course objectives. There is a required textbook. You'll need the unity of form and function. Some students have said they didn't receive it yet. My suggestion is maybe some students have it in digital form or have a PDF form or copy of it. If you're having any challenges, you don't have something, always ask your classmates. There's always someone that's super tech savvy. There's always someone that knows a trick to something. So if you post a message on the discussion board where it says ask questions here or ask questions about the course, that's questions you can ask me, or you can also ask each other, and then you can subscribe to that page so you get these notifications, okay? You will need Connect. Every time you see that word Connect Lab, Connect this is your lecture book, Unity, Form, and Function. That's for the lecture portion. Connect is the resource that you use for lab. There are lab assignments and there are lab little quizzes and worksheets that you do digitally to earn points. Okay, so Connect is a major portion. On the discussion board, I did note that there were 4 students. I think at that time it was Dominique, Elizabeth, Latricia, and Kelsey have all successfully registered for that. So if any of you have any challenges, reach out to them on the discussion forum and they can walk you through it if you feel a little bit technologically behind on that. But we're all in this together. Your fellow classmates are in the same situation as you, are busy just like you, have family just like you, and are working just like you, so they understand where you're at. Okay, in terms of the breakdown of the course, you'll see that the exams each week, there's an exam. I keep the exams open all week. You can take it on a Tuesday, you could take it on a Friday, but it must be, they shut down at 11:59 and 59 seconds Eastern Standard Time. So if you start that exam at 11:45 p.m., you only have less than 15 minutes to complete it. It's not that you have a full hour to complete it once you start. It actually shuts down no matter where you are in that exam at 11:59 and 59 seconds. So make sure you're complete by then. But you do have the full week. Some students want to get it over early on. You can, you know, try and have, my suggestion is try and have everything done by late Saturday night. Why do I say that? Although you have Sundays as well to work on things, I say that because Sunday is a bridge day. It's a day that you can use to catapult and start the following week. Where if many of you work on Monday, you can actually get a jump start on it on Sunday. So that's why I say try and have everything complete by Saturday, and then you can move on to the second week starting on Sunday. The lab portion is 20%. Again, that's done through Connect, where you have APR. APR stands for Anatomy, Physiology Revealed. That's a really cool thing that I'll show you in a second. There is a post-test at the very end during week 4. Some of you already took the pre-test. The pre-test was saying, hey, you're coming into anatomy and physiology. We don't know what you know, but it's a starting point. Let's see how you do on this information. And then you're tested on similar information on those similar categories at the very, very end, and they want to see that you've improved. That's basically the idea. All right, so that's 60, 20, that's 80%. Then we have 15, so now we're at 95% is the discussion board work, and then the other 5 is the post, so there's 100% of possible points, okay? Each week, you'll have similar moving parts. So there's reading assignments, so you have the textbook, which will cover chapters 1 through 4. Yes, it's lots of information. It does move quick. You will have lecture resources. There are PowerPoints that are available, but there's also outlined notes that you can find, that you can print up as well. And those outline notes are great to highlight or even to rewrite. Then there's the lab portion. So in this week, we'll go through the body orientation, which I'll cover a little bit today in lecture to get you started, and cells and chemistry. These are found in APR, Anatomy and Physiology Revealed. Once you register, it will look something like this. When you get in there, let me see, it looks like it expired here. Let me get back into it. Let's do it from here. Once you get into, I'm jumping a little bit just because we're talking about APR, under week 1, when we scroll down to that section, you'll see here it says week 1 lab. So when you click on that, it'll tell you, okay, in this week, this is what we'll be covering in week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4 for the lab. So let's go and look at week 1. So let me scroll. This is the instructions on how to register. I did send an announcement message on there, but if you didn't get it, you can do it from this lab page. It walks you through the process. This is what the little icon thing will look like, the cadaver dissection tool, Anatomy and Physiology Revealed, APR. When you open up the page, you'll see this, APR module, select the module. So let's just do that now so I could show you what it looks like. Here's the McGraw-Hill link for Connect. So I'm going to click on Connect. Once you're registered and you're logged in, you'll see here, go to my Connect section. When you click on that, this opens up. And I'm in instructor view. You'll be on student view, but you'll see this right here. It looks exactly like that for the APR. And then bam, this opens up. When that opens up, you can see where it says select module. Well, for the instructions, it said body orientation, cells, and chemistry for this week. So when you click on body orientation, and then you have this chevron right here, when you click on it, you're going to move right down these topics. So when you click on body position, you can click on what you see on the left, anatomical position, prone position, supine. It does some demonstration. Once you feel comfortable with that, you go to the next planes of, these are the planes. Click on coronal, it highlights it, mid-sagittal, oblique. Then you go to the next topic and you go right down the line, body regions, or let's say, whoops, I think I skipped one. Let's go to directional terms. This is a biggie. Anterior, deep, distal. You can see the arrows there. So you're going to take the time to go through these, and then you'll do, when you finish everything, you'll go to cells and chemistry and do the same thing. Go to the generalized cell, click on all these, centrosomes, cilium, and it highlights it. Free ribosomes, Golgi apparatus, lysosomes. So this is more of like an interactive process, okay? Again, It helps you learn for the lab. Now, this is key. If you do this, you're gonna get jammed up on the lab quiz portion of it. Okay, and you don't want that to happen. So when you're in the APR, this is the learning process of the APR. Then there is a quiz portion. Let me show you where that is. Let's get out of here. Okay, so once you clicked on the APR, you see here, week 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the quizzes that you're going to take based on the exercises that you've done to teach and go through them in this APR, right? So this is Connect. In Connect, you have the Anatomy and Physiology Reveal. That's the teaching tools. And then you also have the quizzes for week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. All right, so those are kind of like some of the key essentials. You want to make sure you do the discussion board. You want to do the quizzes in Connect, the exercises to help you do well on those exams in the APR. And then there's the exam that goes over that you have all week to do that covers the information on chapters 1 through 4 in your textbook. So there's the lecture textbook that uses the lockdown browser. I'll show you where that is. Let's go through. I'll show you where that is in a sec. So here we were on the APR, right? There was the lecture resources. There was the laboratory portion that we just showed you. I just showed you the body orientation, cells and chemistry in the APR. The evaluation was the pre-test that many of you already did. If you didn't, you'll do that under the Start Here section, which is right there, getting started before you get into week 1. You'll have the discussion board, and then there's an optional things. There's an optional exercise to do, which is like a weekly summary. Not everyone chooses to do it, but it's a good idea to do it in case you need some additional points at the end, extra credit. Okay, so it's the same stuff every week. Week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4. So you have your syllabus as review to go over what you'll be covering each week. Let's go into the Get Started portion. There's a textbook. Course objectives. There's the pre-test that you need to complete. That's mandatory. Here is the course certification. That was mandatory. Here's the support information. As some of you are having trouble with Connect, right? I don't know. I can try and help you as much as I can, but this is probably your best options right here for that, okay? The course introductions are here. This is where many students have been introducing yourselves, and I've been commenting on just about everyone who has introduced themselves. Here's the Keiser library. You have access to so many different journals and resources. And I think that's really the key there. So let's go to week 1 and make sure you do what you need to do for this week. And I'll get into some information. Okay, so what we showed you was the major themes of Anatomy and Physiology. Chapter 1, you're going to be doing Chapter 2 is Chemistry. Chapter 3 is Cellular Form and Function. 4 is Genetics. That's in your textbook. Here, the atlas, that looks like, let's see if I have that. Here, atlas from the textbook. This is what you should come across for this week. Not much to it, but it's basically some directional terms, quadrants, cavities, and some things like this we'll cover today before the end of the session. Okay, so that was this where it says Atlas A. Okay. Your exams are taken in Lockdown Browser. So that locks down your browser pretty much. You can't open up anything else on your computer. It's just a safety feature that they use for exam and student integrity. The exams are open all week. Again, they close Sundays at 11:59. Make sure you have a strong internet connection for those. Everything is due, right, by Sunday at 11:59, whether it's the Connect Lab quizzes, whether it's your discussion board or discussion forum, all the work, it has to be completed by Sunday, and that's why you need to do your time management. Okay, here's your lockdown browser. Make sure you do this. This is a practice test. It's not graded or anything. It just ensures that your lockdown browser has been downloaded to your computer. Okay. So those are the instructions for that. This week, these are the learning objectives. These are the reading assignments from your textbook, chapters 1 through 4. Now, don't stress out over that. I know it's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But keep in mind, as you're going through some of the readings here, look down below. There are supporting videos on the key concepts. And these videos are like 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. I went through them. There's nothing more than like 2.5 to 3 minutes long on this. So when you go through chapter 1, watch these and then kind of read it, right? Watch these for chapter 2 and then read it, or have them side by side as you're looking at a topic. Go, all right, I don't understand the atomic structure. Click on that and it'll walk you through a very short, brief tutorial on that. So you have that for all 4 chapters. That should give you a little like sigh of relief, okay? In terms of your citation, here's a little tutorial for the APA format on how to cite your work in case some of you have never done it. You want to make sure that you feel comfortable. This is like a 3-minute or 4-minute video. Where it says resources, when you click on this, you can download the PowerPoints. You can also download the outlines. So when you click on that link there for chapter 1, you'll see there are some additional YouTube videos here that we posted. You'll see that here is the PowerPoint. Here is the Atlas A that we saw, that I brought up, that had that the body cavities and all that. Here is the outline. This is really, I find that students do well. I think the PowerPoints are okay, but having this outline Word document printed up, and you can highlight, circle, and rewrite, that's key. And you can see these outline notes for each chapter. Outline for 2, outline for 3, and outline and PowerPoints for chapter 4. Okay? All right, let's go back, see where we left off. Okay. So that was this: lessons, resources, PowerPoints, and outlines. We already went through the week 1 lab. This is where you'll register through Connect. This is where the APR is, and that's where week 1 through week 4 quizzes can be found. Okay. Here is the first exam. You have all week to do it. The exam will cover chapters 1 through 4 and that atlas. Gives you all the, you have 1 hour and 15 minutes to complete the exam. I think it may be, I don't know, 25, 30 questions or somewhere around there. So you have plenty of time to take that. Do not click save and submit until you have completed the exam. That's important. If you click save and submit after the 3rd question, you get graded on 2 questions, 3 questions. Okay. Here's the discussion forum. So when you click on that, you'll see that this is what students have been posting. So it looks like Danielle, Shirley, Elizabeth, someone just posted something at 9:19. Hey, you should be in my class. All right, so you actually, while we were doing it, that's good. You chose your topic. You wanted to get it quick before someone stole it from you. So that was nice. That was a good technique. So you will choose it here, claim it. Make sure that no one's choosing, importance of water was already chosen. Okay. All right, let's see what else we have. Let me just go back to that for a sec. I think I wanted to show you that you can subscribe to that. Let's go back to the discussion. When you click on that, there should be a subscribe. So if you want to subscribe to that, you get these notifications if someone replied to yours. Very cool. You could do the same thing for the other discussion board where it's just ask questions. The rubric is there, and the topics, again, if you want to review them. And then here's the weekly summary. This is optional. This is the extra credit portion. The guidelines of what you need to do to earn that are down here below. Okay, pretty straightforward, nothing super complicated, but again, it's time. So if you finish early and you feel like, you know what, maybe I didn't score too well on that, or maybe I need a little bit more of a competitive edge, then go right ahead and do the weekly review, okay? But again, that portion is extra credit. Let me go back to the discussion forum so I can show you. Here is discussion, and you'll see that ask questions are there. This is where you don't only just ask me questions, but you can ask one another questions. There's one new question. I'm not going to review it now, but I've already answered about 3. So that's there. Here's the introductions where you get to introduce yourself if you want to meet your classmates. There's about 5 new ones that I haven't looked at yet. And then here's the week 1 discussion forum for this week. And there's the rubric, again, that you can review how to score your points. Okay. So that's the general flow of the course. I don't think I missed anything just in the overview of it. So discussion board, the lecture exam, the AP and the lab section, which has the APR activities, and then that quiz that you do in week 1, week 2, week 3. It takes a few hours. I think the quiz alone in the APR, they say set aside 2 to 3 hours just for that alone to do that. Some do it very quickly, but going through those exercises is important for the lecture exam as well. Okay, for lab and lecture. Okay, let's just make sure. See if we had any questions here that popped up. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so I think what I'd like to do now is I'd like to go over a PowerPoint to go to, and it looks like I shared the file here. Let's see if I could share that. Okay, so I think it's really important to understand some of the basics in anatomy and physiology. And there's more basics to this, but I'm going to start and try and like whet your appetite a little bit with some really cool information. So when we look at an individual, we need a reference point. And the reference point is this, where you see this young lady standing, she's standing erect with her palms facing forward. That is called anatomical position. If her palms are turned around so that you're seeing the back of her hand, that's not considered anatomical position. This is important because having the hand face this direction, we will use other terminology coming up like medial, lateral, midline, and having the hands in that position is really key. So anatomy and physiology. Anatomy is really the study of human structure, whereas physiology is the study of human function. And there's lots of different ways that we can look at human structure. It's We could use diagnostic imaging to look at anatomy. We can feel or palpate or touch to look at anatomy. When we talk about physiology, it's how does that joint function? How does the heart function? We know that there's a structure to it, but what makes the muscle contract? What makes the heart pump? That's physiology. So structure, function, or like the title of the book, form and function. Anatomy is more structure and form. Physiology is more function. In terms of anatomy, there's microscopic anatomy, right? There's macroscopic things you can see with the naked eye, but microscopic is you need a microscope to see the structures. When we talk about cells, that's cytology. Whenever you see CYT, cyte, like when you cover the cell, we'll talk about cytosol, cytoplasm, cytoskeleton. So cyte, CYT, is always the cell. Histo is tissues. Histology is the study of tissues. We'll see that in terms of the organization of life, we have chemistry, you have chemicals like carbon and oxygen and hydrogen and nitrogen, and these chemicals come together, even chemicals like carbohydrates and proteins and fats, right? We eat these foods, we break them down, and we get chemicals. Chemicals are important. They come together, chemistry comes together, and they make cells. And then cells come together and they make tissues. And then tissues come together and they make organs, like the heart and the lungs and the stomach, right? And then the organs come together and they make systems. So if we were to talk about, let's say, the stomach and the intestines and the liver and the gallbladder, those organs come together and they have similar function that makes up the digestive system. Those are systems. And then all the systems come together and it makes an organism, like the digestive system, the nervous system, the respiratory system, reproductive system, immune system, cardiovascular system, skeletal system, muscular system. They all come together and make an organism. So you get this organization of life from chemistry to cells to tissues to organs to systems to the organism. In terms of physiology, there's cell physiology, there's organ physiology, system physiology, right? What's going on within the cells, what's going on function-wise within the organ itself, how does the entire system function, and then pathological physiology or pathophysiology is diseases, right? Pathology, it's the effect of diseases on those systems. This is what I had just mentioned about the levels of organization, how you have chemistry, like atoms and molecules, and they make up cells, and then cells make up tissues, and tissues make up organs, and then organs come together, and they make up systems, and then the systems make up the organism. So again, if you're more visual, you have chemistry, the chemistry comes together, and they make these cells, and then the cells come together and make a tissue, and the tissue makes an organ. The organ makes, similar organs like the heart and the blood vessels make the cardiovascular system, and then all the systems come together and make an organism. In terms of the different systems, you should be somewhat familiar with the integumentary system. We'll cover that throughout the term, throughout the next few weeks. The integument is the skin, hair, and nails and sweat glands, right? It's the outer protection of your body. The skin, the hair, the sweat glands, and nails. So it's going to protect us against all these environmental hazards. The skin helps to regulate body temperature, right? We know body temperature is 97, 98 degrees. And then we know if our body gets too cold, muscles start to shiver and it generates heat. And if we get too hot, sweat pores open and you can release heat to cool off the body. And that brings up an interesting concept you'll learn about in the first few chapters of positive and negative feedback loops, where if your body's hot, it can cool it off. If it's too cool, it can warm up. If your blood pressure gets too high, your body will find a way to lower it. If your blood sugar is too low, how does it raise it? If your blood sugar is too high, how does it lower it? So bringing the body back and forth is about these different feedback loops, positive and negative feedback loops that you'll be learning about. And that's an important concept. So if you're running and you go, oh my God, the class is going to start, I got to make the live, Keiser live, and then your heart races and you're breathing quicker, and then you sit down, everything's fast, and then within 2 minutes, everything goes back to normal. That's a negative feedback loop. It negates the physiological response. It does the opposite. That's a negative feedback loop. Positive feedback loop is more of let's say a woman is in labor, right? There's intense muscle contractions, right? Intense pain, and labor is very uncomfortable. So there's more pain, and the pain releases hormones, and it creates more muscle contraction. And the muscle contraction creates more pain, and it creates more hormones. And it's this feedback loop that when there's pain, you'd think it would stop, but it doesn't. It comes on more and more and more. That's a positive feedback loop. Okay? Positive feedback loop moves more positively in the direction that you already have it. And it only stops, right? The pain and contractions only stop at the very, very end when the baby is delivered. Okay? But the process of childbirth itself is like a positive feedback loop. There are many more negative feedback loops in the body for sure. Okay. Skeletal system, the bones, cartilage, ligaments, bone marrow. The bones are really important, folks, right? This is not just a place to hang muscles, right? Because muscles do attach to your bones. But the bones are like a reservoir, right? It's a reservoir or a bank for nutrients. It stores calcium. It could store magnesium. Lots of minerals are stored there, some iron, right? So calcium and other minerals are stored. It's a place where blood formation can start in the bone marrow. Okay, and it also protects us, right? I mean, look at the skull. It literally is a helmet that protects your brain, and your 24 freely movable vertebrae, right? That protects the spinal cord. Now, that alone should tell you, if you look at structure, the function is to protect it, right? So that's a major important system, the neural system, the brain and spinal cord. That's called the central neural system because it's central, CNS, central neural system. Your nerves that go to the periphery is part of your peripheral neural system. Okay, let's look at the next slide. Muscles. Hey, muscles are really important. They attach to bones. Muscles attach to bones by way of tendons. Ligaments are a type of connective tissue that goes from bone to bone. It holds two bones in alignment. But tendons are just an extension of muscle, and it's how muscles attach to bone. And when a muscle contracts, muscles are contractile. When they shorten, it kind of puts that tension on the tendon, and the tendon pulls on the bone, and that creates movement. So muscles can also generate heat. I'm in the Northeast. It's freezing right now, right? Some of you are in Florida. It's warm. You know, if I go outside without in my shorts, like I am, and just a t-shirt, my muscles are going to contract. Think of it, when you have a fever and your body temperature needs to go up higher, you'll shake, and your jaws, right? Your muscles contract. That's designed to generate heat. Okay? All right. So muscles, super important. The neural system is the brain and the spinal cord, peripheral nerves, and sense organs. Sense organs are like your eyes, your ears, your tongue for taste, your special senses. Little hairs on your arm can pick up a lot of sensory information. And really, it's designed to take and internalize data, right? To take in information like a computer, and then it processes it, and then it spits out information. So there's sensory input coming in, it processes it, and then there's motor information that comes out. That's the neural system. The endocrine system is kind of like the neural system. They're like close cousins. They help to direct function like the neural system, but while the neural system is using electrical impulses, your endocrine system is using chemical messengers. So the pituitary gland that's in your brain is part of the neural system, but it's also an endocrine organ. It's a gland that produces hormones. The pancreas, although it's part of a digestive organ, it's considered an endocrine organ. It produces insulin and glucagon for blood sugar regulation. The thyroid gland is another endocrine gland. It produces hormones that controls metabolism. Your adrenal gland is above the renal. Renal is kidney. Add means you're adding something to it. So you're adding something to the kidney. That's the adrenal gland. That's part of adrenaline and cortisol, part of the stress response that many of you are having right now, right? The adrenal rush, the cortisol rush. So endocrine organs are designed to create these long-term changes throughout the system. It can adjust your metabolic activity and energy use as well. The cardiovascular system will be covering the heart, the blood, and the blood vessels, right? Your heart is pumping out blood cells. It's pumping nutrients throughout the body, oxygen, carbon dioxide. It's involved in regulating temperature. Cardiovascular system is really important, obviously. Lymphatics are part of your immune system. The lymphatics, like your spleen, your lymphatic vessels, your lymph nodes, your tonsils, your thymus, these are all part of the immunity. It helps to fight infections and disease. Your respiratory system, it's not just your lungs, but it's the deeper part of the lungs, the alveoli. It's the nose, your nasal cavity, your sinuses, your larynx, your trachea. All this is part of the respiratory system, and it's designed to take in oxygen. And the only reason why we need oxygen, folks, is to produce energy. That's it. You will learn a part of the cell called the mitochondria. The mitochondria is going to take that oxygen and it's going to use it to produce energy. And you'll hear the term cellular respiration. Cellular respiration is like we take in oxygen and we push out CO2, carbon dioxide. Well, that carbon dioxide is the exhaust that comes off from the mitochondria during the what's called Krebs cycle or citric acid cycle. That's all for energy production. When you hear energy, you're going to hear the term ATP, adenosine triphosphate. ATP, adenosine triphosphate, all revolving around energy production. Let me go back there. Digestive system. You know, digestion starts with the mouth mechanically. That's your tongue, your teeth, your lips, your throat, your pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small and large intestine, liver, gallbladder, pancreas, major players in digestion. Where does digestion really start? People think the mouth, but it really starts in the brain. If you think about it, you can think of grandma's cooking or ma's cooking or dad's cooking. Just thinking about it can make you salivate. So digestion from a chemical perspective, not mechanical, but chemical, starts in the brain. We know a lot of eating disorders don't start in the mouth. Those too start in the brain. So digestion allows us to process and break down food. It allows us to absorb and save water, to bring in nutrients, vitamins, and minerals, and allows us to store energy reserves. The urinary system, this is made up of the kidneys, the ureter, the urinary bladder, the urethra. It allows us to excrete waste products from the blood. All the blood is filtered through the liver and the kidneys pull out a lot of impurities. It's like a filter in a fish tank, and it just pulls out the impurities. It saves the good stuff, but helps us eliminate the bad stuff. It also is involved in regulating pH. That's another topic that comes up. pH stands for percent hydrogen or potential hydrogen. And the more hydrogen that you have, Think of the stomach, for example. We have hydrochloric acid, HCl, hydrochloric acid. So the more hydrogen, the more acidic. And you'll learn about the pH scale coming up. The pH scale is between 1 and 14. 7 is neutral. Anything between 0 and 7 is an acid. Anything from 7 up to 14 is an alkaline or a base. So really cool information on that. Male and female reproductive. So the male is the testes, the penis, the scrotum, and then there's some deeper structures that we'll get into, the epididymis, the ductus deferens, seminal vesicle, prostate gland. Some of these you may have heard of, just common language. Functions, it produces sperm for males, involved with sexual intercourse. And then on the female side, ovaries, vagina, the labia, clitoris, the breast, the mammary glands, uterine tubes. And again, the male produces the sperm, the female produces the egg, and provides milk for nourishment of the newborn, and of course for the uterus, for the developing embryo, for labor and delivery. Okay, let's go through some basic terminology. Now, I know it's getting a little bit late, but I'm okay to stay on. I have no problem. I was only going to do an hour, but I will go on to finish this. If some of you have to go, I get it. You can go. This is being recorded, and it'll be posted. All right? But I'm here with you, and I don't want to say, okay, the hour's up, we're done. So just hang tight, if you like. So anatomical landmarks. We talked about anatomical position. That's standing, hands at the sides, palms facing forward. This term supine and prone, they're opposites of one another. When you're supine, you're lying down on your back face up. I tell my students, think of it this way. When you're on your spine, you are supine. When you're on your bone, you are prone. Okay, you're prone, the bone being your nose. Think of it that way. So when you're prone, you're on your bone, you're face down. When you're on the spine, you're supine, you're face up. Also, with your palms facing up, we say the palms are supine. Think of it this way. You hold soup in a supine position with your hand. And when you turn your hand over, you're prone to spilling the soup, right? So supine is this, prone or pronation is this. Hold the soup, supine, prone, you're prone to spilling it. Okay, hopefully you got that, you got it down. We're going to look at some superficial landmarks coming up, and we'll talk about some of the cavities and abdominal pelvic cavities. So it's important to know some of these terms, right? I read some of the comments in the discussion board. I spoke about some of the, some students said, oh, you know, anatomy seems like a different language. And it is. A lot of anatomy and physiology comes from Greek. A lot of it comes from Latin. So, for example, when you look at the word cephalic, my wife happens to be Greek, and she's from an island called Cephalonia. And in the word Cephalonia, it means the head Greek island, the largest. Okay, so cephalic means head. Odic is ear. Frontal for forehead. Buccal is cheek. There's a muscle called the buccinator, so cheek. Oral for mouth. Mental is chin. Cervical is the neck. You have the cervical spine, that's the neck. The thorax is the chest. The breast is mammary. The armpit is known as axillary. The axillary. And this is important because even when we get into like the cardiovascular system or the nervous system, there's an axillary nerve, there's an axillary artery. We'll learn about the spine, the thoracic spine, right? So you're going to hear these basic terms. When we do muscles, you learn about the biceps brachii. So this is the brachial. The anterior forearm, the antecubital. The belly button, umbilical. The stomach region is the abdominal region. Okay, so the thorax, the breast, the abdomen, umbilical, this is known as the trunk. Okay, When you look at some of the lower part, okay, the wrist we call carpal, the palm is called palmar, the fingers are the digits, the thumb is pollex. Inguinal is for the groin, pubic, the thigh is the femoral or femur, the kneecap is patella, the leg is crural, the ankle is tarsal, the foot is pedal, and then the toes are digital, and the great toe is hallux. The thumb was the pollex, the toe is hallux. Think of H for heel, for foot, hallux. Think palm, pollicus. Again, cephalic means head, cervical is neck. The dorsal is the back. Dorsum or dorsal is the back. Olecranon is the elbow. The acromial is the highest part of the shoulder up here. The rump is the gluteal region. That's important because you'll hear like gluteus medius, gluteus maximus, gluteus minimus. Those are large muscles of the hip. The lower back is the lumbar region. The back of the knee is the popliteal region. The calf is the sural. The heel is the calcaneal. And the bottom of the foot is called plantar surface. The palm was palmar surface. The heel, the bottom of the foot is called the plantar surface. This is the lower extremity or lower limb. So you can review these again if you're more linear and you don't want to look at the picture. These next few slides just goes over the same thing by region. These terms are important to know: superior, inferior. These are opposites to one another. Anterior, posterior, these are opposite. Medial and lateral, these are opposite. Let's take a look at some of these. Proximal and distal, these are opposite to one another. Superficial and deep, these are opposite. Contralateral and ipsilateral, those are opposite to one another. So here, when we put those terms on a person, when we're moving upward, we can say we're moving superior. When we're moving downward, we're looking inferior. If we're talking about an extremity or a limb in reference to itself, not the entire body, but just to itself, we use these words, proximal and distal. When you're closer to the beginning of the body, we say it's proximal. When we're moving distant or distal, when we're moving further away, we're distal. So proximal and distal can be used for the upper extremity, or proximal and distal for the lower extremity. Medial and lateral. Lateral is when you're moving away from the midline of the body. Medial is when you're moving towards the center of the body. So medial and lateral. Proximal, distal. Superior, inferior. They're all antagonists to one another, okay? Two other important terms, anterior and posterior. Anterior is the front, posterior is the back, aka also known as ventral for front, dorsal for the back. So ventral and anterior are synonym, they mean the same thing, and posterior and dorsal also mean the same thing. Cranial, moving to the cranium. Caudal, moving to the tail. Let me go back for a second. There were just a few other terms here. Superficial and deep. Superficial, if you're looking at the skin, okay, let me bring this down a little bit. If we're looking at the skin, you can see the epidermis, that's superficial. Deep to that is the dermis. So you have superficial toward the body of the surface, deep away. Deeper is deeper to the body. Superficial is more towards the surface. Contralateral and ipsilateral, they're opposites. So if I were to say to you, patient came in, their right shoulder hurt, and the contralateral hip, that means the right shoulder and left hip. If I said their right shoulder hurts and the ipsilateral wrist, it means right shoulder, right wrist. So contralateral and ipsilateral. Be familiar with the quadrants. You see, it's just you make this plus sign here at the belly button, at the umbilicus. You have a left upper quadrant, right upper quadrant, right lower quadrant, left lower quadrant, and you should be familiar with main organs that are located there. So you can see left LUQ, left upper quadrant, right upper quadrant, right lower quadrant, left lower quadrant. You can see the organs that are located there. And then they also list them this way. Right upper quadrant, these are the organs. Left upper quadrant, those are the organs. Right lower and left lower. Again, the main parts. Now there's regions as well. Okay, you can see right in the center is the umbilical region. Gastric is stomach. Epi means above, so above the stomach, epigastric region. Hypogastric, below the stomach. Then we have a left lumbar and right lumbar region. Then you have a left inguinal and right inguinal region, and a left hypochondriac and right hypochondriac region. So you have 4 quadrants and you have 9 regions, and the concept is the same. If we put that grid, it's still the same organs, but you can see, you know, the appendix here is in the which quadrant? Let's go on which region? Right inguinal region. Okay? So quadrants and regions, similar concept. Okay, those are the directional terms that you can review again. And again, all those reference terms here, they give you some examples, so you can take the time to review those again if you'd like. In terms of sectional anatomy, we have different types of diagnostic imaging, whether it's MRI, PET scan, or CAT scan, and allows us to kind of look at the body in these different planes. So if we cut the body in half, looking at front and back, we call it a frontal plane. If we cut it in half so we can look at the right and left half, we're using a sagittal plane. And if we're cutting it so we can have a bird's eye view, we call it a transverse plane. Okay, so we can look at the body in 3 different positions and dimensions. And again, for good reason, right? We can look at an MRI of the brain from a sagittal view, from a frontal view, looking at from front to back, and then looking at a transverse view, bird's eye view, looking straight down so we can see the ventricles of the brain. Okay, these are some of the planes: sagittal, mid-sagittal, parasagittal. So when you're looking at, let's see if we can bring it this way. Let's go back again. Sagittal is anything that separates into a left and right half, right? Mid-sagittal is right down the center, but I can have a sagittal going down my arm, going down my leg, right? We know what a frontal is, and we know frontal is separating into an anterior and posterior half. Transverse or horizontal is looking at an upper and lower half. Those are the keys. And there are exercises on the APR that'll walk you through all of those again. Everything that we're doing, there's exercises on the APR for that. In terms of the body cavities, these body cavities that you see here are also on the APR. So you can actually click on them, and then they'll show you interactively where they are. So the body cavities, they have some really important function. They protect the organs from accidental shock, right? All the organs live in certain cavities within the body. We have a ventral cavity, and we'll see the diaphragm in the center that separates a few cavities. We'll see if we could show you that coming up here. So we could see here is the thoracic cavity. Down here is the abdominal pelvic cavity. You can see the diaphragm is the muscle that separates this upper cavity from the lower cavity. And in the thoracic cavity, we see that there's 2. We see that there's the heart and the lungs. So pericardial cavity protects the heart, and the pleural cavity protects the lungs. And then you have the diaphragm that separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal pelvic. And in the abdominal pelvic, There's the peritoneal cavity and the abdominal cavity and the pelvic cavity. Another view of that, here's the thoracic cavity, so you have the heart and the lungs there. Then you have the abdominal cavity down below that protects your digestive organs, and the pelvic cavity for the urinary bladder and reproductive organs, male and female. Okay. Here's the cranial cavity and the vertebral cavity, that's separate. Again, if you look at the breakdown, here's the thoracic cavity. There's the pleural cavity that surrounds the lung. There's an area called the mediastinum, which is in here, that has the trachea, the esophagus, and blood vessels, but the heart itself is in the pericardial cavity. So you have a right pleural cavity for the right lung and a left pleural cavity for the left lung. In the abdominal pelvic region, there's the peritoneal cavity, and then within the peritoneal, there's the abdominal and pelvic cavity. The abdominal cavity for the digestive organs, the pelvic cavity for reproductive and urinary. Want to point out the difference in the serous membranes. There's a parietal layer and a visceral layer. The parietal layer is going to line the cavity, but the visceral layer is going to cover the organ. Let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to just fast forward here. So here's my fist, right? So here's a fist, and let's say here's a balloon. If you push the fist into a balloon, this lining right here is the visceral layer, and the outer portion here is the parietal. So now we look at the heart here, this layer that touches the heart, that's the visceral pericardium. And then the outer layer is the parietal layer, the parietal pericardium. Peri means around, okay? And then there's a cavity. That's the pericardial cavity. It's filled with fluid, okay? All right. Let's look at the next one. And then we have the lungs, right? The lungs are in the pleural cavity. We have the heart in the pericardial cavity. The abdominal region, same thing. Again, there's a parietal layer and there's a visceral layer. So the parietal peritoneum and visceral peritoneum. So when you hear the word peritoneum, we're thinking digestive organs. But the parietal and visceral mean the same thing. The parietal lines the internal body wall, but the visceral layer covers the organs. Okay. Okay, and the pelvic cavity is really the inferior portion. It's within the pelvic bone. It's just going to contain the reproductive organs. All right, so that's a little bit of a good introduction to anatomy and physiology. Make sure you look at the APR to review those interactively. Get busy with the discussion board, claim your topics, do your research, post those. Work on the APR, do the activities, then do the lab quiz. Okay? And if you have any questions, be sure to reach out to your classmates first. Perhaps they can help you. If you get jammed up, you can always reach out to me. Okay? Let me stop this recording here.